Hi, I'm Sophie Philpott, the Senior Careers Advisor here at York St John. I'm making this video about application theory, or in other words, how to write really good applications for jobs. So one of the first things I want to just cover is that there are a few different ways to apply for a job, and that you don't really get to choose which one you use. You have to use the one that's appropriate for that opportunity. So one of the most common ways of applying for a job is either an application form or a CV and cover letter. So when you find an opportunity that you want to apply for, it'll often say, to apply, please either send a CV and cover letter or upload a CV and cover letter or fill out this application form or complete this application form. So that's how you know which one it is that you want to apply for. Both methods are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to get information across to the employer about you so that they can work out whether they want to invite you to interview, or maybe it's part of or assessment centre or video interview or phone interview. So there's a few different stages that can be involved, but it's about them trying to find out what they think is important to decide whether you can come for an interview or not. Application forms tend to be made up of space for your personal details, your work history, your education, and then a personal statement, which might also just be under a section called any other information or please tell us about why you want to apply for the job, with a separate equal opportunities form. When somebody asks for a CV and cover letter, there are a few different CVs that you can share with them. Chronological CV is the one that you're most likely to be aware of because it's the ones that's like taught in secondary school and things. It's where you say, here's my name and contact details. I've got a list of the jobs I've done in reverse order. I've got a list of the things I've done in reverse order. Job. It's really functional. It really does the job, but it's not your only option. For most jobs, you can also use a skills-based CV, which is really similar. It's got your contact details, it's got your education and your work history. But what you do is you put evidence-based skills in a clear section. This is a really good CV for those of you that are looking to pull together transferable skills into a new job. So maybe it's the first time you're looking for a job in a chosen career path, or maybe you've had a few different jobs, or you're looking at trying to pull out information from voluntary work and university, and you really want to kind of showcase it. Skills-based is really good for that. There are industries where you need to think about a creative or a technical CV, and they will have different remits and options to maybe something like a standard chronological skills-based CV. And it might well be that you're looking at getting a job within academia, so within higher education, you need to look at an academic CV. What I'll do is I'll put some links at the bottom in the information box about where you can go for more information about CVs. So CV and cover letter and application form are traditionally used to respond to a job advert. You can also apply speculatively for a job. So you can contact an organisation that maybe doesn't have a vacancy at the moment that they're advertising and see if there's an opportunity for you to work with them. And this might be voluntary or work placement, but it might also be paid work. The speculative CV follows much of the same rules, but you're doing it without a job description to write to. So I'll jump straight in with the theory behind good applications. Often when you're applying for a job, it's really easy to feel like the company has all the power and that you have none, and that there's a really huge gap between the power balance in the situation. But you have a lot of agency and you have a lot of control over what you put forward, and that really reduces the power imbalance. Your job is to convince them that you're a solution to their problem. No company ever advertises for jobs when they feel really comfortable. There's always an element of stress or pressure under getting a new person or new people within their team. So have a think about, why is this company advertising this job? It might well be they've had somebody get a new job who's leaving the team and they need that there's a fear that there's going to be workload that's not covered by somebody, so they need to get somebody in that can cover a workload. Or maybe they're going through growth and expansion and they need to grow the team to support new workload. Or maybe there's a piece of work that can't be done within the current team and they need somebody to come in and deliver it on a project basis or a short-term basis, but they can't actually manage it within their own team. So an employer, when they're advertising a vacancy, is under pressure and stress to get the right person to fix a problem that they've got within their company. So you're not at the bottom of a power balance. Don't get me wrong, the employer has the power. They're the one choosing who's coming for interview and they're the one choosing who gets the job. But you're trying to solve their problem. You're trying to show and demonstrate that you're the solution to their problem. And this gives you a lot of agency and is really empowering when you think about writing your applications. But to do this, you want to be succinct, compelling, and appropriate. It's about working out how you do a good job of convincing them to invite you to interview. So my 3 tips for that are commercial awareness. You need to know who you're applying to. Who are they? What are their values? What are their missions and aims? What issues do they face? And what are their strengths? If you know this, you can tailor your application. You might have heard that term before, how each application should be tailored to an opportunity. It's completely true, but working out how to do it can sometimes be a bit harder to imagine. So commercial awareness, this understanding who a company are, allows you to work out which skills you want to put first in your CV, or which of your values or strengths you want to highlight in your application form. My example for this is, imagine that there's a vacancy that you really want. It doesn't matter what vacancy it is, it's just one that you really want. And there's 2 versions. The job looks almost the same. So the job description, the duties you'll be doing every day, and the person specification, the skills that they want from you, skills and experiences they want from you, are the same. But they're at 2 different companies. One of them's at Coca-Cola and the other one's at Pepsi. If you wrote one CV that ticked the boxes and one cover letter that ticked the boxes and sent it to both Coca-Cola and Pepsi, would you get an interview for both jobs? My money would be on no. You might not get an interview at all, or you might only get one at one, but it's impossible to write an excellent application without reflecting the company. Pepsi and Coca-Cola are really similar companies in some ways. They both sell fizzy, brown, caffeinated beverages. And when I go to a pub and ask for a Coke and they tell me it's only Pepsi, I've never said no. Like, from a consumer's point of view, really comparable and similar. But from their own point of view, really different. Trying to do different things, even though they're both transglobal corporations. Think about their branding and what lifestyle they're trying to sell you. Think about Diet Coke as a brand. A sugar-free version of Coke. Their slogan is "Take a break." And then compare it to something like Pepsi Max, which is also the sugar-free caffeinated version of their product. And their branding is all about a high-active, energetic lifestyle. So if you can't reflect the different brands within your application, how will they know that you want to work for them? So it's about being able to reflect to that company that you're part of the solution that they're looking for, because you already want to work for them. And it's not about lying to companies or being false or about just reiterating back to them what they've already got on their website. It's about showcasing the bits of you that match them. So it's about being truthful, but using the best version of your truth to match that company. So you can build your commercial awareness by doing things like looking at the company website, mission statements, values, following them on LinkedIn, seeing what information they've got on there, using your networks to create information, to gain information about them, understanding what the wider sector is like, and then making sure that you reflect this in your application. My second bit is understand what it is that they're looking for. So jobs tend to have job descriptions, and sometimes these are really tiny and don't give you a lot of information. and other times they're really lengthy. So I work in higher education, and we have a really sort of HR process, and we have very clear guidelines about what our job descriptions look like. There has to be a very clear job description that lists all the duties, and then a person specification, which is a number of points that we're going to use to shortlist for interview. Within public sector, you tend to find a fairly similar kind of process. In a more commercial world, you'll sometimes just get a job advert and not much other information, or you'll just get 3 or 4 points, or there won't be a clear job description with an identified person spec. There'll just be skills and values and experiences dotted throughout the description that you have to unpick. So a way to kind of really develop your understanding what they're looking for is to do really good sector research, understand what that job tends to be, look at jobs in other organisations, look up job profiles on prospects.ac.uk because they will list key skills and good sector information. If you can understand what the wider sector looks like, you do a much better job of pinpointing what it is that's going to help them solve their problem in their office. And if you blend this with your commercial awareness, you can write something that's really tailored. But understanding the person specification, if there is one, is really key. So going through it point by point about what skills and experience they're looking for, and having a think about why are they looking for this skill. Maybe they're asking for communication skills. Is that about working with colleagues, clients, stakeholders? Because if it's about all three, and you've got an example that you can give them in your application that ticks all three, that's a really strong application. Maybe they're asking for good problem solving. Is that going to be about because it's a job where customers are going to be phoning you up with problems and you've got to help them solve their problems? Or is it problem solving because you're going to be in charge of some processes that you have to streamline? So understanding why they're asking for those different points makes it much easier to then work out and pick which of your experiences you're going to give evidence to in your application. So you don't have to meet 100% of the application, of the person specification. They'll often say whether things are desirable or essential. With the essential ones, if you meet like 80%, that it's worth putting an application in, because you only have to be better than other people that apply. You don't have to be perfect. And a lot of times it's about your articulation. So you don't have to have done exactly that thing before, but can you talk about some things that you've done that show that you've got the transferable skill, and that you could learn it in that job? A past colleague of mine once said that the best advice that she'd ever been given was that if you meet 100% of the criteria for a job, don't, because what are you going to grow? What are you going to learn? How are you going to grow in that job if you can already do it all? Now, I think that's, there's room for discussion about that, about whether or not it's about solidifying or getting a permanent job or a few different areas. But it's a really interesting mindset to consider about what you're wanting from a job and about not ruling yourself out of a job just because you don't see it as a 100% match. But reading and understanding the person spec and doing your good sector research will really help you understand what it is that they're looking for. And then that makes it much easier to present as a solution to their problem because you understand it. And then what you need to do is give relevant examples. To shortlist for interview, what employers are looking for is a particular attitude, one that suits them, and it might, one that suits their organisation and their team, but also evidence. I shortlist for jobs, and I can't tell you how many times I get really frustrated because I can see somebody's potential, but they've not given me any evidence, and then I can't shortlist them. So it's about going through that person spec, and you blending it with your commercial awareness and bringing forward the bits about you that are really relevant to that job. They don't have to be the same and they don't have to be an exact match, but it's about being able to describe what you've done in the past to show that you understand your skill set and that your skill set can grow and develop. One really good way of doing this is using star-based examples. So I'm a bit of a waffler, and when I write application forms, I get nervous and I waffle more, and STAR really helps me keep on task and give the employer what it is that they're looking for. So this is about thinking about an example that you've got and demonstrating it to the employer. So STAR is giving the situation, the task, what action you took and what the result of that was. If you do good STAR-based examples, it shows that you've got relevant experience or relevant enough experience, because you set the situation, you tell them what the situation is. You tell them what task you had to do, which shows that you're giving them something that's relevant to the point on the person spec. Maybe you will signpost and use the same language that they've used in the person spec, so that they can see that you understand that the task you're giving is directly linked to the person spec. And then you're going to spend sort of 40 to 50% of your answer talking about what you did. You're going to break down that skill and identify how you did it. So it's not just, I worked with a team to get it done. It's, I made sure that I understood my role as part of the team and what my responsibilities were. I worked with colleagues to make sure that we were all working towards a shared goal. I was able to see that a colleague had a much higher workload than I did, and so I offered and then stepped in to support them complete that so that we could all go together. And when I was unsure, I asked for help ahead of time, in good time, so that we didn't run into stumbling blocks near the end. Your action part of the answer is you describing, you demonstrating that you understand your skill set and you can take it with you. So you have to articulate what you did and why. And then the result is you demonstrating that you understand that your behaviour has an impact on the work that you do. So maybe you talk about reaching targets, achieving the thing that you set out to achieve. Maybe you talk about what growth you got from it. So talk about learning and development and reflection. Or maybe you've got really good feedback from other people. So maybe you could talk about how your manager complimented you on how you approached it, or you got great customer feedback. There's a lot of different ways that you can give results. And the result is the bit that if you miss the result off at the end, it can sometimes leave an example feeling really lackluster and like you don't know what impact you had. So STAR is a really solid way to give examples within an application. So it's about being succinct. You don't want to talk too much. You want to keep it so that people can read it. People are busy. People are really busy people, and they're under pressure and they're under distress to get a job filled. So you want to be succinct. You want to be appropriate. You want to be talking to them about their job at their company. So that's where your commercial awareness and your understanding of the person spec really comes in. And you want to be compelling. You want it to be able to convince them that you have a skill set that they're looking for, and that's where your application, that's where your relevant examples come in. So, very briefly, my CV top tips: be compelling. CVs can easily just become a description of what you've done, and that's not what an employer is looking for. Use active words, so managed, collated, overthought. Like, we'll start your sentences with words that demonstrate that you were doing something. You don't have to write in full sentences on a CV. It doesn't have to be nice. It just has to be compelling. So employers on average spend, I think it's something like 7.8 seconds reading a CV. And what you want to do is make it as easy as possible for them to get the information that they need. So using active words and not writing in full sentences, like, so starting with things like managed or controlled or coordinated is a really good way of showing very quickly that what skill sets you were using. Add numbers where possible. If you've got results, or you've got targets, or you've got an increase in participation in the society that you're part of, add those numbers. They're really a powerful way to demonstrate a result. Try and avoid starting sentences with I did this or I that or things, because your CV has your name at the top. They know it's about you, and what it tends to do is lead to lengthier, wordier sentences, and what you're trying to do is have these short, sharp, powerful sentences. Error-free is really important. Proofread your work. Get a careers advisor to proofread your work. Get a friend or a peer or somebody, a parent, to proofread your work. Some employers get thousands, and I mean thousands, of applications per job. What's one way to really quickly get rid of a load of applications is to lose those with spelling errors or grammatical errors. It shows a lack of attention to detail. So it's well worth spending the time proofreading your work. Have lots of white space on your CV. Don't just narrow your margins and cram loads of stuff in thinking that you're giving them more information. It actually makes it so much harder to read. Imagine trying to read a handout that you've been given that is so full of text that you don't even know where to start. That's what a really busy CV feels like. Think about reading things that have got bullet points and white space, and about how much easier it is for your brain to digest that information. Make sure it's evidence-based. The STAR process that I just discussed is really good for writing paragraphs in an application form or giving good interview answers. It doesn't always sort of go straight across to a CV. So think about where you're giving those elements. So your context might be your job title and employer, and your task might be half a sentence about what you had to do, and your action might be how you did it, really briefly in like 2 short sentences. And then your result might be at the bottom of that job. You start talking about your achievements. So maybe you were promoted or asked to train new staff, or you got great feedback. So you might be able to kind of break the sections of it up and still have those elements, even if it's not in one long paragraph. And no more than 2 sides of A4. The only exception to this is potentially an academic CV, where you need to list your publications, and that takes you over 2 sides of A4. And then the other exception is actually in the creative fields. You're looking at 1 side of A4 and about how you present that in a creative way that gets your message across. But no more than 2 sides of A4. People won't read it. A cover letter is normally 1 side of A4 and has a structure that I've got a good resource for that online. I'll link to that below. So my application form top tips. Accuracy throughout the whole application form. So this is similar to a CV. Make sure that your contact details and your work history is accurate. Be thorough in your work history, but remember that bullet points and covering the top elements of it are normally enough. Most cases, it's the long personal statement that you write, or any other information that's going to determine whether you get an interview or not. So make sure that you write to the person's specification throughout your personal statement. You don't have to write it in the same order that they've given it to you. If you find it easier to write with an element of narrative behind what you're doing, and that makes it easier to read, then that's great too. I've shortlisted application forms a good number of times, and I fairly quickly got 2 favourite types of application form. My first favourite are the ones that are really obviously terrible. The ones where there's like 3 lines saying something like, I think I could do a great job. I look forward to having an interview with you. And I've definitely read that application more than once. I love those because I don't have to read the whole thing or spend a lot of time on it, and I can just close it down. One time I was advertising for a job and I got 100 applicants, and those little rubbish applications were brilliant because it meant that I could move on to the next one nice and quickly. My other really favourite application form style is when people do things like number their paragraphs or use the lines from the person spec to give me a heading for what answer they're giving me, because then I can very quickly determine whether I think they give me enough evidence for me to judge them as having met the criteria or not. If that's not possible, sometimes word counts make that really difficult. Then making sure, my next favourite was when people use the same language that I wrote in the person specification within their paragraphs, just the key words from it, because then I'd know which bit of the person spec they're talking about. The applications that I found hardest were those that didn't reflect my language that I had in my person spec and didn't have a clear structure at all. A narrative is fine because I can follow it, but when it's just paragraph here and paragraph there, that then became very difficult for me to work out where they were trying to give evidence. And that took a lot of time and a lot of energy at a time when what I wanted to do was get through my shortlisting effectively and give people a good, fair chance. So that signposting is about using the language of the person specification and of the organisation. And readability is really key with your application form. Think about whether or not you've ended up with some waffle in there, because that takes time and energy. Is your language style, are you owning skill set? Are you telling them what you did rather than what happened to you in a job? That makes a really big difference. Does it flow? A tip for this is to use things like text-to-speech software and listen to it back, because that can often really highlight where things aren't flowing or don't make sense, or where you haven't realised that you've got 2 words the same next to each other because they're split onto different lines and you can't see it because you're reading your own work so much. Get other people to proofread for you. It makes a huge difference. I've been teaching application theory for like over 10 years, and I still get people to proofread mine because it's so much easier to see issues in other people's work than it is in your own. So that's my theory behind good applications. We're here to help you. So you can book appointments via LaunchPad online. I'll put the link to that in the description. One-to-one appointments can be, can you help me understand this person spec? Or what do you know about finding out more information about that organisation? Can you read over my CV? We can do that in one-to-one appointments. We can also support with, I've got a plan of where I want to go, how can I get there? Or I feel a bit lost, I'm not sure what plans I want to make. We can have conversations about either of those things and everything in between. At the moment, we're hosting video appointments and over the phone appointments. And then when we're back on campus, you can come see us face to face. You could also email careers@yorksj.ac.uk. We're happy to give feedback for CVs and applications over email. And you can also ask us questions and we can try and get back to you via email too. We have a podcast, which I link to below in the description, which has got some really interesting and useful topics covered by us and our guests. And we're uploading more and more content to our YouTube channel of different key topics that we hope are useful to you. So thanks for listening and hope to speak to you soon.